Hello and welcome. Looks like we're about to get kicked off here. So that does make sense. We're kicking off now. So the goal here is to completely start to finish build a script, and that involves a little bit of planning and a little bit of follow through. So let's kick things off by defining what's going to get built. So today I just want to start off with something small, and I'll make a quick doc. Just to kind of outline the proposal. It just helps organize all the ideas, and basically it'll give us a checklist or a way to figure out when we're done with the script, or done hitting all of our goals. So the thing that I want to be making right now is going to be a semantic scraper. Now, I just gotta keep with the name a few minutes ago. That's not going to increase my font size. So a semantic scraper. The idea here is whenever you create a new application or a new script or something, you want to solve a problem. So the problem that I have is I have need to evaluate all of the class names and variable names for a file. Ideally, an entire project, but a specific file is where I want to start this. So the problem that I have is I need a way to strip out all of the programming inside of a script and show me just the class names and the variable names that the user has chosen. And well, class is a bit of a stretch. I'm going to be dealing with Node.js here, so I have no idea how to do this. I've never tackled this, so this is kind of just where to start. So the problems clearly state that. That's the problem with the goal. The goal is going to be simply display all. Let's just start with all variable names, and we can kind of enhance it from there. You know, one of the key things with agile development is iterate, iterate, iterate. So let's keep it real straightforward here. So display all variable names of a Node.js file. A stretch goal, or kind of like where to go after that. One thing that you're going to love is all of my capitalization and spelling faux pas. They get fun. So, all right. So the goal is this. How am I going to achieve this? I'm going to use Node to import target file and output the results. All right. So I'm just kind of like thinking through the problem here. Like I said, this is just super small. I just want to test streaming here and see if this format's going to work out. I've got high hopes, so we'll rock it. And I can talk a whole bunch. So that's what we're going to do. There's not much else to go with. So yeah, let's minimize this down because we don't really need too much of that. And let's get cracking. So I'm going to open up Terminal. I'm using Mac Sierra currently. I have OhmyZSH installed, if you're wondering what that is. It allows you to have a little bit of extra fun with your terminal, color and theme, and do other things. And I also have Rupa Z installed, which it allows you to jump around. So I can do things like jump over to my project box. I don't know how to spell it right. I can just kind of do that, and I can see that, yes, in fact, I am over there. It's just a way of changing my directories around in such a manner that I don't have to remember exactly where everything really is or sits, which is kind of nice. So let's go ahead and make a new directory, and we'll call this Semscrape. And very first thing I should probably do is bump this font size up for you just a hair. And I'm going to npm init to get my initial files. And I'm going to use semantic versioning, description. I'll circle back to this. Source. Sem.js. Test command will eventually be Mocha, but I'm not there yet. Don't have the repo, don't have keywords. I am Chapman, and the license is going to be open source for this. So feel free to use and abuse this as you see fit. So right there, that has created my package.json file. So I'll open up Atom, which will let me start editing all this lovely stuff. That's a lot of Atom. Let's tone it down a hair. All right, so next up, I want to kind of start off my basic projects. I'm going to touch.get in. Don't want to touch that. Yeah, I want to get init. Then touch.get ignore. And in that get ignore, I want to add a few basic things. Node modules, all log files, logs, log. No DS store files because I'm on a Mac and those things suck. And that's really all I want to focus on for right now. So that's good. All right, so I need to play around really and figure out how I can make this work. So essentially, I created the endpoint. The endpoint is going to be source sem. So new folder, source code. All my source code for this project will live right here. In a sem.js file will be what I want to run. All right, so I'm gonna open up a new terminal. I'm just gonna put this down here and go to Semscrape. Yeah, so OhmyZSH is nice because it tells you with this little X like, hey, you have uncommitted changes. So git add, specifically the .git ignore, git commit, initial ignore, and I still have uncommitted changes because I've only added one specific file. But now that I have that ignore there, I can ignore everything. OhmyZSH also has nice little things baked into shortcut around. So git add all, git commit message instead of the aforementioned up here, which is nice. Just double check if I'm streaming or not. Yes, my preview had not reloaded. And font size looks good. Cool. Test, test, test. Well, it's more of a mantra. Test, test, always test. Test, test, test. Not mic check. Anyways, so I want to commit my other files here. So initial file base. All right, so immediately I want to stop working on master as soon as I possibly can. So I like to follow the branch model, or a branch model that I have feature branches coming off of the development, and coming off of that we can go into releases and master and set up for deployment and everything down the road. But for right now, I will create a dev branch and a and feature branches off of that dev branch. So git checkout -b for a new branch, call it dev. Do the same command off of that branch for a new feature, and this feature is going to be playground, because I have no idea how to achieve this. I need to test. So in this playground, and you see again, OhmyZSH tells me what exactly branch I'm on. Git branch is a nice, like, here's all my branches, but hey, by the way, you're right here. And why not? I'll just open this right there, just in case I need that. I absolutely probably don't, but whatever. All right. So now that I'm here, what I really wanted to do was say node mon source sem.js. And there's nothing to do because there's nothing in there. Log howdy, save. We're now logging howdy. Cool. Test, test, test. I always like to make sure that things are hooked up properly. And when things aren't aligned, the designer in me starts tweaking. Anyways, I'll just get rid of that. Don't need it at all. So we essentially need to set up a variable. So variable I prefer single quotes. Okay, so we want this to be output ultimately, and to do that we have to do a little bit of research. So there's a few things that I am aware of offhand, just knowing a bit about Node. There is a process command that I can console log all sorts of stuff off of, and this has environmental variables and all sorts of other fun things. But I'm going to go ahead and copy this into a new file, and I am going to look for, that's not there. Okay, so cool. Now comes looking through this whole thing and finding out what's actually in there. If there's anything in here that we can use. I see args. Nope. Nope. Yeah, so this looks like it's just all the meta information that has to do with Node, like this thing running. Yeah, because here's my standard out, here's my standard error, and standard in. For what it's worth, standard out is, where is my, there it is. This is the standard out. Anything that we console log is standard out. So time for a little research. Node.js. You are going to love my spelling. So, well, okay, so listing all global variables might get us in a decent object. Get on properties, yeah, that's not really it. Function globals return this. Object get own property, yeah, that doesn't really get us anywhere. Get all defined variables in the, oh well, that's kind of exactly what we're doing. Well, that's very close to what we're doing. So figure out scope. Yeah, that doesn't really feel like what I want. So in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, okay, just in my research right here that we're seeing like, you know, some folks are approaching this issue or similar issues from the file system aspect of things. So maybe I'll just put my notes right here. Notes. All right, so maybe use the file system to regex the names out of the source. So with this, we wouldn't have to like actually evaluate the JavaScript. We would just have to create a regular expression to look at the entire source code as a string and try and pattern match things. So we could look for vars or constants or lets or you know, anything equals. Well, that's not gonna. So see, like right here, as I'm thinking this through, like there's lots of little situations. Like, what if I say, you know, function. You know, what if I created a function like this? Well, now on top of the var const let, I also have to have a pattern to match this. But yet, you know, with ES 2015, this is not how functions get defined. You can define them as arrow functions. So then, you know, now we're talking about like, well, there's weird little different situations. So I'm gonna put this down here as notes as like a backup. Maybe I'll have to work on that or deal with it. I really don't want to. I just see a lot of problems with that. So I'm gonna keep searching. Treat it like a JSON? No, that doesn't make sense. So how to get a variable from a file to another? Well, that's kind of what we're trying to do. Well, yeah, that's using module exports. That's all right, so let's try different path in searching here. So Node.js get list of all registered. Awesome speller. Registered. Yeah. How to get all registered routes in Express? Nope, we're not building a server. Content, list all endpoints. Accessing flow variables. I don't think that's at all what we're looking for. Yeah, that's no bueno. So keep on keeping on. List contents of a directory with node. All right, well, globals was interesting. because you know there's global objects. This is node 8. So one thing to take note of right now. Come on. I'm using node 695. However, I'm using node VM, NVM. And I have access to every version of node very easily. And 8 is out. So worst case, if it's something in 8 that we have to play with, we can do it. That reminds me, there is, by default in package.json, we don't define what version of node that we're using. I don't like that. So engines, and engines is going to be an object, and it takes a node. That was weird. And npm. So right now we're using 6.9.5. And what version of npm are we using? 3.10.10. So it's good to always have those matched up, because later when we start deploying, we want to keep everything all nice and aligned. And I'm going to delete that untitled file that I just dumped all that source into. Alright, so we're still not anywhere, which is no fun, but let's get back here. File name. Alright, so here's some fun things, and you know, as I go through docs, I like to just be able to try things out. So I'm going to open up a new tab. The fun thing with Node is you can just say Node. You don't have to get a file. It opens up the console, and you can say things like are you sure that's what's going on? Yeah, not defined. So that's weird. So this is coming in as all modules. Let me save that. Okay. So it's interesting because the same line of code does not fly from the console. So maybe the JavaScript console is not the best place for us to be testing. So I guess I'm going to have to keep just editing this file and test and test and test and test and test. So we have the directory name, which is nice. File name we can access. It's cool. Console exports global. Well, let's see what's in the global namespace. Oh, there's a whole bunch here. All right, so let's go ahead and actually make a global variable. Come on, yeah. And foobar. So you'll see a lot of like hello worlds and foobars and 4i's and all sorts of other stuff in documentation, and that's really just the super generic thing to use. I just want to kind of randomly point that out. I hit save. Let me clear this actually. Restart the server. Ooh, look at that. Poorly named global right there. Okay, so cool. So we can get globals. But I want to find paste. I don't want to find paste. Now I want to find. Let's find hello world. No hello world. There's our foobar. All right. So global gives us the context or the object of everything there. So module exports is something that we can use to it's something that we can use to essentially share data between two different files. It's the backbone of Node and how like everything is modular, how we can make it modular. But what if we look at this as the context of like, you know, this one file is its own module. So does the module output anything useful like its contents? Okay, so here's the exports. We're not exporting anything, that's fine. Current file name, parent, ID, boring. Okay, nothing there. So here's the process that I've already played around with, the process object. Just a little context rather. It's always available in Node.js without using require. Next. All right, so require, nope. Resolve, immediate interval. All right. I'm not seeing anything that's standing out just yet as it's going to help us. Yay. So let's look at a different direction of things. So so in JavaScript, you attach everything to the window object. Or I'm sorry, windows and documents kind of contain a lot of object hierarchy that the entire DOM lives inside of in standard JavaScript. Node is just JavaScript. So it's not running in a browser. You don't have to worry about a DOM, but is there a document-like object for us to explore? Wow. Don't want to replace introduction to DOM. Might have to specify Node.js. Does Node.js have the, oh, that's my question. Perfect. Global is that's all. So here's a link to a discussion. So one thing to note too, like I don't know if anyone else does this, but when I'm looking at Stack Overflow, I almost never look at the actual question. I like, this is always going to be wrong. Like straight up, it's someone going in the wrong direction. Either their code's bad. There's no chance my code's gonna look like their wrong code because they might be wrong in a different way. So kind of like to go right to the answer and see if the answer makes sense to my context, which it may. So let's go look at namespaces. Type of global undefined. Object isn't the global object, it's window in the browser. Okay, so this is not, I was hoping that was like going to a conversation, because that's, yeah. This, oh, this. Interesting. This has no context. All right, it has the right context. It's just, there's nothing to it. However, if I said maybe exports, which one do I want to do? Yeah, module exports equals non-miss arrow function. And then I put all this in there. It never runs. I'm just trying to think of how to make this work for us. I don't think that's going to be usable, because I want to just look at a bunch of scripts. I don't want to have to modify those scripts at all. So that's not going to fly. All right, moving on. So what is this native module stuff? Let's find out. What happens if I console log it? Hard error, not defined. Not really a thing. It's probably something. No, it looks like it should be something. Doesn't matter. It's not relative to what I have going on. Is self a reserved word in Node? It is not. Okay. I'm just trying to cover all the bases and kind of explore. So let's clear out some of these bad questions. And back to the Google question board. How do I show all of the variable names? So the variable names, it's one of those, like, it's not the official word for it. It's not the how you would officially say it. So it's a object key. It's the key of this object. So show all object keys for a Node.js file. So yeah, we do have the option to say object keys, and we can pass in an object into there, and it will come back with all of the keys inside of there, which it's not what we want though, because this actually requires you to pass an object into it, but we don't want that. We just want to say, hey, go grab all of the objects. But I wonder if there's something else in object keys that we can look at. It's gonna crash. This maybe? No, that wouldn't make any sense. So notice also that I'm not trying to experiment and solve this problem like in another file that I'm actually going to be using this inside of. I want to have this little isolated, super simple thing that I can solve the problem in, and solve it simply, and then adapt this into my other working code to make work. Too many times do I see people, trying to make this work inside of a, couple 100-line project, or 1,000-line project. Oh, hey. Thank you very much. Parens at the end. For the object, yeah. So the search continues. I'm trying to essentially list all these names. So let's go back to my search. Iterate over objects in the key. How do I find the old object path? So npm is it's a node package manager. Everyone can put their own scripts up there, and can also be a good use of code to go tear through their stuff and check out what they've got going on. This is not gonna solve the problem at all here, but yeah, so that is not it. So maybe you need start asking questions in a different light, not so much how to find the variables attached to the object or attached to the node file, but is there a master object to a node file? Because if there is a master object, then we can start to tear into that object to find these variables that I have there. No, that's not going to do it at all. Nope, not really seeing anything there. Time to look at a different way. So I'm gonna circle back, and I know there's the global object that has all the global variables attached to it, which is only working if you spell it right. There it is. So we have our poorly named global there, but we don't have some semantic name. And that's the one that I really want. So that I can have the script evaluate other files and pull everything out for me. So go ahead and change this out so you can see this. So you have full context of what I'm trying to do. And bring this back. So here I'm just kind of stitching buzzwords together. And doing some skimming through. Don't necessarily want to go full ECMA 6 on this, but it's not a problem. Just going down the rabbit hole here. This foo. Yeah, 'cause I mean, if I... Well, here, how about let's look at it this way, because if everything is in this file, that's going to do me no good anyways, because we're going to be bringing in a target file. So let me actually recreate that. And say target file JS, and then these will exist over there, and then the later it gets, the better my typing gets. It's going to be great. Source target file and tar. You know that you don't have to have that on there. Oh, I'm already in that directory. Okay, so tar, it's fine because we're loading it in. And if we had something, exports, for instance, we'll just make it equal to a blank arrow function that returns true. Returns. So, you know, because we are exporting this, it attaches dummy function to the overall file so that when that comes through, it's good. But want to target these. So it's gonna be interesting because now I don't have, or maybe I do have access to the globals. Yep. Okay. So yeah, poorly named global is still coming through, which is interesting. Okay, so this is not node at all. I should have looked harder at that. Not node, not node. Node. All right, so another route that I'm going to end up going in is I'm going to be using gulp eventually. And gulp is going to be my task runner to bring in the other files and perform these calculations on them. So maybe there's a solution inside of gulp somewhere that someone else has kind of tweaked on. So gulp variable name. Let's replace maybe. Okay, so it's a string replacer. So this is coming back to our thing that I noted earlier, is maybe we have to do regular expressions. So I mean, worst case, we can do that. But ideally, I want to find a way that Node will let me hit this goal. So let's go back. Uglified plugin block. Fuck you, Microsoft. Perfect. Variable name scraper. How to get environmental variables? Nope, already got that. That's not a problem. Using variables in gulp for the yeah, that's not it at all. I might have chosen kind of a steep problem for being so simple. Node class. Oops. I don't want a style guide. Style guides are nice because they help set the standard so that everyone that's on your team can have the same standard of code. So that when you look at a line of code, it's not like, oh, this other person made it, and I know that it was this other person because he always does 2 semicolons for some stupid reason. There's a really good style guide out there called by Airbnb. Wow, guide for JavaScript. They also have one for CSS and a bunch of other fun stuff. But it's really cool for what it's worth, because you can come in here and see, you know, variables, for instance. And this is kind of, you know, Airbnb took the time. They've got a team that sat down and built this out to make sense for them. When and where and how to do all sorts of different things. So when to use constants, how to formulate things well. And some of these get super nitpicky. So there's actually plugins for Atom that you can grab. I'll cover that some other time. But you can get those plugins that will just like highlight a line and lint it for you and tell you that that line specifically does not conform to the style guide. And it like references out to like the specific place that's wrong, which is kind of cool. But not what I want tonight. Node.js variable name get. How to dynamically Maybe. Yeah, no, that's just arrays and keys. Not what I'm looking for. What is this? How does Node.js work? Apparently not. Apparently not at all. This is going to be the wrong direction, but sometimes the wrong directions take us to heavy accidents somewhere. No bueno. All right, so I've got the backup plan here. Backup plan 1, we'll call this. Not notes, but backup plan 1, regular expressions. They suck. Backup plan 2, read the source for Node.js. So I could, I've been told that Node.js's source code is fairly readable as far as the average developer with a little bit of experience can get in there and understand what's going on. This feels like a very indirect method for me to solve this problem that I'm having. So I doubt that'll go that route, but it is just something I came up with, and worst case, I could go that route. So rather than read the source, I think I'm going to have to go back to Node's docs, because I am at a loss of where to go at the moment. So let us, it's fun. I've actually never just pulled up the docs and said, hey, I now, well, I usually just Google and it lands me in here somewhere. So I keep seeing globals, but I've already hit that. File system, doubt it. OS, that doesn't make sense. Path? Stream might be up our alley, because the way that Node works is it tries to stream everything around. Maybe it's going to have our variables. Const my stream. Yeah, that's is stream. Nope, not a reserved. Nothing special. Unless we require it. So what if we require stream? Okay, so what I like right here is the word super. I mean, it's not going to be good at all. I just kind of like it in this context because it's kind of a wrapper. Default listeners. All right, so there might be something either in stream or probably more specifically, there's probably some standard. So like OS, for instance, I've played with OS quite a bit. So OS, if you require the OS in here, you've got access to all sorts of stuff, specifically about what's going on, the host, uptime, CPUs, you know, all sorts of other information. Constants. Ooh, constants. Let's probably just export from my path somewhere. All right. But the nice thing here is I'm getting a little headway. I'm seeing that, or rather I forgot about there's some basic stuff that I don't have to install, but I can just require in and have access to the different pieces. Ooh, os.constants. What? Oh, I am just about stupid. That's exactly what I got excited for in half a second ago. So, I doubt it, but let me search. Constant was, oh, you know what? I didn't make a constant. I only had a variable. So let me constant derpy equals so saving that, getting this is derpy. Nope, derpy's not in there. That sucks. So yeah, and it had had I read that one sentence rather than do my test, I would have seen that it's commonly used operating system specific constants. But this is like exactly what I'm looking for, just not off of the OS. So let's abandon the OS. Stream we might come back to, but let's kind of look at this one at a time. Assertion, buffer, add-ons, child processes. So a child process is something that you can like spin up a whole sub execution with, and that's almost guaranteed not going to be what's going on, because like anything that you can do in the command line you can do through a child process. And yeah, that's all this is really talking about, is just those child processes, not nothing about dot constants. Yep. No, well, I wonder if we could spin up the evaluation of another file as a child process and attach that way. No, we're kind of in a cyclical error there, because if we can't get it to reference anywhere here, there's no place that it's going to attach to later. All right, no bueno. Cluster, command line, console, domain errors, events, maybe. I doubt it. File system, I really don't think so, but I'm going to explore it. Because this is really just, you know, navigating the file system of your host. Nothing to do with what's actually going on. All right, so events was a possibility. Yeah, so events work a lot like sockets, where you basically set up a string as a flag, and you can emit something on that flag, and you can have other things listening to that flag, and basically pass pieces of information between your application all over. But that's not what I want to do again. And I think that these are just emitters from here on in. So yeah, events is a no-go. You know what? Let's go ahead and vet streams, because I'd rather close the than just keep like overlooking it. All right. So types of streams, object mode. That seems interesting. No, that's wrong direction. So different events for not events, just how to write to a stream. Gulp works highly with this behind the scene or under the hood. Readable streams. All right, so this is reading a stream off of a file and logging what it was read, or what was read. Yeah, that's still no. All right, so readables, duplexing, streaming implementation. Pretty certain that this isn't going to fly, but I just want to finish vetting this. Yeah, that's not gonna do the trick. All right, continuing on. We're not trying to build a server. We've already looked at globals. The link that I had, I don't know that it was for Node 8. So maybe something new showed up in 8 that we hadn't thought of. Require cache, extensions, resolve. Yeah, nothing. All right, so modules. Yeah, it could be in there. So, I mean, this is essentially what we're doing there. Don't want to access just the module. I want to access the parents. So how about this? Node.js access Vars not exported in a module. All right. Yeah, I don't need to understand it. I need to work around something. Super old blog, but maybe it'll have something. Nope, no. Well, Stack Overflow link. Nope. So I'm going to go back to my main question, because I think this is a pretty good question. Because one of the big things is JavaScript is not strictly typed. With that, it doesn't privatize your variables as a lot of other languages do, where you can set things to private so that other files that access that file should not be able to have access to those private things. But because JavaScript doesn't do that officially, I think that we can get around that. That might be a way to go. So Node.js access Vars not exporting a module. I really feel like this is the phrase that everything you need to know. I like it. Yep, we can look at that too. Sure. I feel like this phrase that I'm searching on is solid, but the results that I'm getting are not. That could be interesting. Yeah. This is really only dealing with things that are meant to be exported, not our way around that. Yeah, just a question for folks in chat. Have you guys ever tried to play with Node in such a way to scrape variable names or constants out of a file? Yeah, this is all just exports. I'd like to, you know what, maybe the phrase is bypass. Yeah, let's try this out. Bypass. Ooh, rewire. I hadn't thought of that. I don't know that it would do exactly what I'm looking for. So rewire is nice. It's a node module that lets you essentially rewire other functions. So for instance, if you were making, and this is one I play with all the time, if you were making a debug tool and you wanted to set up a unit test to determine if that debug actually logged to the console or not, you can use rewire and Xenon to rewire that console, the console.log, into a modified version that includes Xenon. And with Xenon, you can have a spy in there, and then that spy comes back with a, hey, I got called. Which is kind of interesting how that all works. But I got sidetracked and didn't hit enter. Use rewire to access private Vars in JavaScript in Node. Ooh, this might be interesting. Okay, so and contrary to what I was saying earlier, here I am reading the problem. The problem seems very similar to what I've got going on. There is one thing being exported and there's other things that are not, and they want to access that other thing. Yeah, so it looks like they're saying that's not what can happen. So this little comment kind of gives me a hint that ES6 might be a way to handle this with static exports. It's the creator Ali, is that his name? Nope. No, Ali is right here. So he's addressing this guy, so oh, so he's just fixing this issue. All right, so that might not be good. So yeah, well, oh, okay, perfect. This is someone talking about using the rewire module, as I was just mentioning. Aha. Okay, I should have thought of that more when we start talking about rewire. Okay, so rewire. I'll need to npm install that thing. So npm install save rewire, and no bueno. Does it have a funky spelling? Did I just type something wrong? Feel like I should have. Oh, that's my problem. That is, my package JSON is messed up. So you'll get this from time to time, talking about, you know, fail to parse JSON trailing comma blah blah blah. Just keep poking around, you'll see that it's actually talking about your file package JSON, which right there I have a trailing comma, and it's not able to run it. All right, so with rewire there, I'm able to say, I'll get rid of these guys. I'll get rid of one of them. Rewire. All right, so with rewire, so it's module, yeah. So when I require the target, I don't require it, I rewire it. So by rewiring it, it lets me have more access to those things. And then I can say target, actually let me drop down here and say, well yeah, let's just say target. Let's see what that gives us. Dummy function, okay. So it brings it in just as usual, but rewire, let's just say target get, and then we can specify different things so we know, ooh, this might require us to know what's in there. That sucks, but it's a step in the right direction. So target file has, let's start off with the global. Let's keep it simple for now. So global, and let's say var our test var. All right, so that lets us explicitly know the name that's there. Interesting. So let's go back and look at their solution. Yeah, because he's just reinstantiating the variable here out of that private variable. So this means that I should probably go do some research on rewire and its get, because I don't fully know what's going on there. And I think that I need to modify some things there to rock it out. So I will head to its GitHub and look for Git modules that export primitives. Attach the. Where does that work in this case? Get with object. Oops. Caveats. Hashed fresh instance. Okay. Globals are imported through the module scope at the time of rewiring, but that's standard for how requiring works. There's a problem when, yeah, Sinan is a great pal for. I don't think that. All right, so let's go down this path. Rewire. A file, specifically a file, because I just want to be able to throw a whole directory at this and evaluate everything. Hey, guy. I am scraping this file, target file, right now. I'm essentially trying to scrape the names of the variables created, so the keys of these objects, from an external file. The goal here being the ability just to like point the script at another directory and pulls out all of the names of the variables so that they can be evaluated for their semantic value. And Node and JavaScript really don't like doing that, apparently. Kind of picked this as a first stream for myself, and might be swinging big. Cool. How's your night going? Access private Vars of a file. Cool. What for scraping, what do you typically use then? Those privates and test. The night's been okay for me. Nothing too crazy. I just started streaming here a couple hours ago. I'm East Coast, so just doing this in the middle of the night. I'm going to be running streams more often during the day, during the evening, but just want to iron some kinks out and try some things. Yeah, I figured you're going to say Python there. I'm actually one project into Python myself. I've got some IoT wearables that I've got some Pi Zeros controlling, and I've got all sorts of fun Python 3 versus 2 issues that I'm... Okay. It's funny, I've got one of the issues, I'm using some LEDs from Adafruit. They're dot stars. They have a C library that lets you use Python to interact with the GPIO pins, and that specific library is not Python 3 compatible, which really threw me for a loop. And I've got a lot more work to do on that to get around that issue. I'm playing around with Docker to have different, or Docker Compose to have different nodes up and running to run the specific services that I need for that project, though. Any fun projects in the yeah like the thing that like it kills me for Arduino is that, you know, I need to compile all the code to the microprocessor, or the controller. With a RPi, I'm able to have you know, a Docker setup that I can use Docker Hub and some other stuff to push updates directly to the hardware. That and C. I've always been able to debug C, but never had the reason to write it. I feel like this is exactly what I need, this article. Yes, yes. Leak the private variables. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I mean, it's a language is a language is a language. I mean, I've been coding for years. It all really boils down to the motivation to, not even just motivation, just having a specific reason to pick up a different language. So like scrapers, or how we ended up on this fork, I played around with scraping back in PHP. God, I don't even remember the name of it. There was some open source search, like on-site search tool that we used for a project one time, and we were able to expand upon that significantly, but at the end of the day, it was PHP scraping and caching our own pages, and then serving the results up, and it was quite the pain in the ass that in the end, if we just used Google self-site search, they would have been fine, and it would have saved us so much time. That's interesting. Having an eval in there. Don't like evals. Yeah. The thing that's going to kill me here is if we have to explicitly know the private variable. Let's go read their sources. It's just the rewire. Okay. Hey, welcome to new folks joining us here. Try to make a scraper to pull the variable keys or the variable names in Node from another file without explicitly knowing them, which felt like we got traction with Rewire. We still probably could. So what I'm going to do is go look under the hood of Rewire, see what it's exactly doing. So get. Yeah, it's about as simple as it gets. It's just evaluating the arguments. Damn it. I was kind of hoping that they had something cooler under the hood than just a eval. Well, this person was writing about an alternative that they had with Xenon. Let's take a second look at Xenon and see what they were trying to make work. Yeah, so a while ago I was talking about how Xenon mixed with Rewire. You can use Rewire to bring in and get the contents of a function, but you can inject a spy into something else. It's like right here, before this unit test, Xenon spy is being injected into that function, and then you're invoking that function, and then the actual unit test that you can run is off of that spy. You can check the .called property, and .called will be true if it was called. And actually I think called actually returns an int, so you can find out how many times it was called in those shitty situations where you accidentally call something way too many times. Yeah, so this is not going to really do it for us. Maybe I can pop into Xenon's source and find out if it's doing something more than an eval. Because if it is, that would be beautiful. So let's find all of the dot spies. And, oh, hey, how about that? Documentation for spies. That's one of the super nice things with like Swift or Java, where like everything is ridiculously documented. And on the website of things, I feel like documentation is just really not there. At least not on the same level. To wrap an existing method. Spies on the provided function. Okay. What? So if it spies on the function, I wonder instead of the function if we just give it the overall object and go from there. Let's try that out. So I'm going to npm install Xenon. Yeah, Java is the worst. Swift. Actually, Swift got me into Python. and I didn't get me into, but as soon as I started working with tuples and dictionaries and everything, like after like 15 years of developing with PHP and Node, and God, I go back to Cold Fusion even, but coming across Python and Swift having robust data structures, it was just like, this is good. This is fun. I can do a lot with this. Why have I not been doing this before? So let's get Xenon in there. And let's say Xenon.spy, and then let's spy on tar, and then let's just log spied and find out what's under the hood. I wonder if we're gonna have to go deeper. Let's actually do things right. So I have that. Spy. I mean, that's not how I've instanced it before. What was the... Yeah, it's... Well... Let's get that working this way then. Nope, still crashing. So that is not the case. To wrap properly as a function. So tar is undefined. That's strange. Maybe it's because we're rewiring it. No, still undefined. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Let's clear some of the garbage out that we've acquired over time, and let's not spy it. Yeah, so that is strange. Xenon. Did I actually run the install? Yeah. Installer ran. Requiring. Or is Xenon a little different? See you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Rock you later. So npm CNAP. Let's find the actual way to put it together. Yep, Xenon. Why would I think that that would be any different? Xenon at 1. Maybe there's a large update. Let's assume there was a large update. Let's follow the docs and rock it how they want it. So instance the spy, and let's go back to Xenon. All right, Xenon access private variables. Yep, that is what we're trying to do. Well, if you return it, it's not going to be private. Well, I'm thinking with exports rather. All right, how to test private functions in JavaScript. Put the code L. See, I mean that's the hitch, yeah. So I guess backup plans is require code to be in a closure. So if we put in a closure, that makes everything in here accessible under the my module. And like that just doesn't make sense that there's not an object higher than that. I mean, like your window or your document object is typically reps everything that goes on inside there. So it looks like they're only going to cover that. Well, how about this? How about let's refactor the goal. So stretch goal should be display all variable names. The goal will be display all exported variable names and functions. So that gives us a first step. Because, I mean, realistically, to require all the code to be in a closure, that doesn't really solve the issue that we're trying to set off initially. So let's go ahead and modify that out real quick. So I mean, it's pretty much already almost done at that point. So if rewire, don't need Xenon, just the target in this situation. So the target gets console logged. We can say object dot keys, and that's going to give us an array of all of the keys there. So actually, I wonder if that'll work out nicely. Exports dot so pirate's true. Okay, so anything that, yeah, that's about as straightforward as that gets. All right, so let's get this into the code base and make it a starting point then. So So this is just targeting my fake target file, but I want to make this as a module. So I will say exports dot what are we going to call it? Oh, we already have a name for it. Sem scrape. And it equals target file. Not target file, path. Path is more representative of the proper naming structure there, so I want to return in the end of things. We will call this the constant array of some names, some keys. Path. And I should spell constant right if it wants to work, if we want it to work. And really, we can just return that. That's that stupid symbol. Well, no, let's, we will expand on this later. And cool. So path, I need to constant. Yeah, I got that wrong. Path, nope. File equals require path, and then the keys from the file. It's not really the file though. This is file contents. See, one of the big things is you really, the better you name everything, the less you have to comment. And the easier it is for other devs to come in and really just understand what's going on. So there we go. So if I make a folder for testing, not in my source, but up there. I will describe basic tests. And it, wow, that is not what I wanted. It, should return a string, and because all right, so let's go ahead and bring that in. Constant sem equals require out of tests and into source sem.js. Sem dot, what do we call it? Scrape. Let's just call it scrape. Sem dot scrape. For the test, we will feed it the file path source target file and let's bring a little chai in here. Get our unit tests up and running. Unit testing is always nice and solid. npm install chai. I should have saved that. And then I can drop this in. Actually, I'll bring an expect auto chai. Chai dot expect. And we'll say output expect output to be a string. So when I say mocha, I am passing. Test for false positives. Always test for false positives. Invalid property. Hardly ever use this one. Oh, type of. I like type of. Make me look up the docs for chai. Expecting is I don't want empty string. Huh, we're gonna find all sorts of string. There's a string dot string. I guess string is the only one. That does make sense. So we'll just go with type of to be equal. And run our mocha. Expected object shouldn't be an object. Oh yeah, it's an array. That's because it should be an array, which is an object. Ugh. All right, so chai, do you have a nice little to be array? Expect array, huh? Size, yeah, there we go. To be array, perfect. So expect output to be array. Did I mean any? No. I need to try arrays, huh? Just for this. Sure, it's not the worst thing. Certain to save, and then spell everything wrong. Wow. I'm just overlooking everything. It's getting early. Super early. So with that, I will bring this guy in. Expect array asserts. Require array asserts. Tell chai to use array asserts to extend chai as such, allowing me to say mocha, and chai is not defined. It's because I'm not bringing all of chai, but now I am. Const expect equals chai dot expect. There we go. Now things are mapped around. And it should return an array. So to be a string, to be a string, we're getting false positives off that, which is not good. So kind of have to just go with it being a thing over here. So let's mark this up a little bit for yes, this is semantically named, and I probably don't have to put that on there, but I've never used this before. The chai array assertions, so I will throw that in there just as a note to myself. Alright, so I have a unit test for should return an array, and let's go ahead and make another test. Why not? We'll test that should return what should contain. We use some more of this assertion array. Contain. Expect output to be containing, huh? Expect output to be containing 3.3. No. What is everything over there? Pirates. Expect pirates to be over there. Run our mocha. To be containing pirate. Well, pirates plural. There we go. And we had our false positive check, so that looks good. Cool. We'll say this dot output just to contain everything to our test. And constant dummy test file path equals just so that we don't have a million of these things laying around that we have to change later. Nice to have a little control variable. Alright, should contain output is not referenced. Come on now. Always test. Test, test, test. Cool. So now we're finally in a state where things are looking okay. So I'm going to go through my code and thin it down and well, we'll comment a few things. Some non-globally scoped vars. And exported vars. So we'll clean up these names a little bit to test things out. And dummy functions, just not quite amazing. Okay. Let's make this a little more complex. Give it some robustness. Okay. So target file, let's call this data.js. How about just target.js? So our test needs to change a little bit to target. Sem is looking okay. We're on our tests. Tests are good. Let's update our test line so that our test line makes sense. Mocha. And I will git add all, git commit my message. All right. A message is going to be all right. So those are forever there. Git checkout dev git merge playground. And those are now nice. So while we're here, let's go ahead and prune off these varying versions. Let's bring in the specific versions that make our stuff work. Get that all, get commit message. And there we go. All right. So with that there, I have hit my redefined goal of displaying all exported variable names and functions. Or rather, I've created a module that pulls it to then use it elsewhere. Maybe a stretch goal then should be to make this a command line tool, which isn't going to take much effort at all. Just basically console log this out to the standard out and solve the problem. Give it a path. Take an argument or two. Yeah. Cool. So as far as things go, this is what I was looking for, and how about yeah, let me grab a path and I don't want to hard code a bad test in here, but I do want to test another file of mine. Git status, where are we at on this? Nothing much. Git reset. Wow. Perfect. Broken env. So this is just a random project I've got on here. It's an API with some basic CRUD. If I cat the, let's say my source models, forget, I think the user is the better one. Yeah, so we've got all sorts of exports around here. So do a little pwd, grab this guy, just for the time being here, I'll create a simple test.js right here. Super dirty way of doing it, but I'm getting a little tired. So I'm going to const require, I'm just writing this all backwards now. Current directory, the sem.js file. We'll call this sem. And we will sem.scrape. Come on now, don't be shy. We will scrape that file. And we will log the output. So I will now change this over to test.js. Kaboom! Oh, that's cute. Because it's trying to run my server over there. I shouldn't be doing that though. Oh, but it's because it's loading in there. Interesting. So this other project has some environmental variables in it that set up the connection to my database. And the thing about that is the scraper, as it goes to scrape those files, it's going to load the database connection file, which this other external project has the passwords to. But as part of what I'm trying to do with the scraper is it's trying to explicitly load something remotely, load a project or a directory remotely. That's interesting. So maybe this stretch goal is more like a to-do. And we will add support for environmental vars and loading the env file for to not break a database connection / fatal error. And I wonder if the way to actually handle this is backup plan number 1. Rather than evaluating these files like I currently am, but to open them up as a text string and then just reg express it to grab all of the variables out of there. That might be the annoying better way to handle that. Fun. Yeah. So to get this to work, let us not use a model. How about a route? API user. I don't think that there's anything exported in this though. Oh no, the whole thing is. Okay, well that works. So routes user. And we try again. Yeah, it's the route is gonna activate the database too, so I'm not thinking. All right, so good news here is this needs a little bit more work, but we've got a direction to go in. Yeah. And I'll just move this test file down to test, because I think even with that in there, because there's no expectations in it, I can't find it, of course. Come on now. Yeah, we're still gonna get all that errors, so so I will just delete that file out completely so that it's not mistaken. And in my tests, I will make note of a couple stubs here. I will say should mindful of env vars and should be mindful of loading a .env file of target directory. And I'll just put those there so that I will come across those in the future. And they will not just be lost and big gaping holes, ideally. I thought I hit save on you. I must test again. Looks good. Alright, so the fun here was overall, I started off with a simple goal, or I thought a simple goal, of scraping the variable names of functions and variables out of a target file. And from the research that I performed, found that I'm only able to target globally scoped variables easily, and also exported variables. So the private variables up here were not able to be accessed. And despite some of the research that I was doing, I came across Rewired was one package that allows you to get into those private variables, but ultimately it just does an eval on those variables. And to do that eval, you have to know the variable name, which is not going to support this as a tool to be used in the future easily. So that kind of sucks. But went down that road, and we decided to refactor the goal away from all variables into just the exported variables. And maybe I should put here accommodate global variables as well, because we do have access to those easily. But I'm going to bow out here in a second, just kind of recapping. Yeah, so here we refactored that, got the semantic tool together to basically scrape and return an array. So we're doing that by requiring the file, which actually loads the file, and that's one of the issues that we're seeing with loading a file that requires like an env and a database connection. It's actually executing all of that code, which maybe the better way to handle this is not to execute the code, but rather go with backup plan 1 and treat this as a string and regex through the file to find the variables. I think that's going to be the next iteration of this, and I will be building that iteration tomorrow night, starting at about midnight, I think. So yeah. So current iteration, it executes that code, uses object.keys to create an array of all of the keys being returned, and then we just pass that to whoever's calling this tool that we've built. Target is just a simple test data target for us. And in here we built some unit tests to go through using Chai, specifically the expect module on Chai. Enhanced it a little bit with assert arrays, Chai's array assertions. First time I've used that, haven't come across that before. Surprisingly, haven't had the need. But we're just using that to verify that the output from our tool was an array, and that it does contain specific elements. It's interesting because I've written this before myself, and it always looks kind of ugly So it's kind of nice to use a package to handle that for me. But we've identified a few things that we do need to do to enhance the tool further. Make it a command line tool. Accommodate the global variables as mentioned. Also supporting the environmental variables and loading the env file properly. If we go with the backup plan, which is what we're going to do tomorrow night, that's kind of a moot point. So actually I can just delete that off there. We are displaying or returning it, but displaying this will be part of the command line tool. So I will give it a slash right there. So right now it's set up for a specific file. In the future, I would like to target a directory, and it just recursively gets everything out. And the goal here is to be able to point this at another another project and suck out all of the variables down to their semantic names, so that we can intelligently make decisions and evaluate like are good practices are being used in creating those variables. And yeah, so that's what we were working on. Everyone in chat, thanks for hanging out with me and having a little fun. It's my first stream, so thanks for joining me. I'm going to be doing this regularly during the day. Late night chats, I don't know. We'll kind of play around a bit, but I'm going to be trying to be building small little tools here or there 3 times a week and go from there. Like I said, it's the first stream, so I don't have the final schedule worked out just yet. Gonna see what works out for me best. And yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me. Rather than just dump and run here, I'll go host over to Serpent AI. It's a guy I was paying attention to a little while ago. He's running some machine learning scripts through how to play Bindings of Isaac, which is kind of cool. So let's try and set that up now, as it's the first time I've ever done this. Serpent AI, let's add him. All right, guys. Don't know if this will actually take us all over there. First time I've been on this side of a raid, so that's fun. Manage auto hosting, hosting you. Well, let me hit save on this other page and we'll see if it does. Thanks so much, guys.